What a lovely day! Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Righteous Force, 10th Man, Original D-Rose, The Adam Meakin, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, welcome. Good to have you all. Shout out immediately to James Mays, who says, good thumbs up day to you all. Support the show. Thank you very much, James. Really appreciate it straight off the bat. Nothing like opening up to a super chat. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth? Don't all go at once.
Hello.
I'm waiting for someone else. I always do it most of the time.
Hello, Armin.
Hello.
All right.
Hello.
No one's going to answer your question, so
No. Looks like we're going to move on.
it's not geometric.
It's not going to be that
it's not
day, is it?
physical.
We did housekeeping almost in its entirety the last couple of days, so I'm more than happy to move on straight onto the video, if I'm honest. So, as we're all warmed up, and sometimes housekeeping just does not go over, and this is one of those days. So the video we're covering today is called Beyond the Big Bang by Bjorn Ek something or other that I can't pronounce. Someone else do that for me? Ekeberg, Arwin. How do you say that?
Ekberg.
Ekberg. Ekberg. There we go. Good enough. Okay, so I'm not going to give it an automatic like, but we've had a bit of a preamble from 10th in the pre-show that this is going to take apart some of the aspects of heliocentric modelling when it comes to the Big Bang. So as always, over to you, 10th. Do you want to give us a little bit of a reasoning behind your choice today?
Yes. It's a model you're going to find out. And when something's wrong with a model, they have to put a building block on it to explain it. And then that becomes part of the model to explain the previous understanding of the model. And then they mosey on down the road and something else happens they can't explain. So they got to put something else. And it's just these building blocks that make up the model, not reality. Eventually, if one of them is wrong, then all the rest that you made up to cover the first one all come tumbling down. The guy does a great job of showing the pseudoscience of it all. And yet he's on that side of the argument, but he sees it.
I suspect this will remind me of Wakey Wakey's interview with that astrophysicist that did the same sort of thing about decrying aspects of the model that failed without, it's just change the model. And then he revealed that he's not actually on her side, and suddenly it's a big deal because, me decrying aspects of the failing model that is heliocentric to you, a flat earther, is devastating, and I wouldn't have done it if I'd have known. I thought you were on my side and would laugh about how failures just get changed. But you didn't. You're going to use it against me and point out the failures, aren't you, flat earther? How disgraceful. Anyway, that was Wakey Wakey's interview with an astrophysicist some years ago, maybe 5 years ago now. It's quite some time ago. Anyway, this is the Institute of Art and Ideas. That's the name of the channel. There is a link going by in the live stream chat. So, as is always the procedure with these things, go to the person's channel and let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully leave them a positive comment so that they know we've responded to their video, which is what we're going to do now. So let's get into it.
Of saying there might be something wrong with their framework, the move of cosmologists was to
framework sounds familiar. Framework?
Say,
is it a logical framework?
There must be something else, because otherwise our theory would not be correct.
Theory would not be correct? What? using these science words already. Bloody hellfire, we're only about 30 seconds. No, 10 seconds in. Our theory would not be correct. Well, scientific theory is based on validated scientific experimentation that was based on a valid hypothesis, based on an actual observed phenomena. That's where you get scientific theory from. So if you're talking about actual science, you're not going to find that suddenly your theory is completely wrong, because your theory is going to be based on scientific validity. But no, that's not what they're doing here. They're just using these science words, aren't they? Like theory.
So what I would like to do in the next 20 minutes or so
Did I title the video? Beyond the Big Bang, by the way. This is the name of the actual title of the video.
is to show how it is, in fact, possible as a hypothesis.
Here we go. More science words. Hypothesis. That would be the independent and dependent variable relationship based on the dependent variable being the naturally occurring phenomena that you want to find the cause of, and the independent variable being your presumed cause of that effect that you observed in nature, and the experiment that you would use to give you scientific validity to go on to give you a theory would be you varying that which you presume causes the effect that you observed in nature. What he will now go on to detail will absolutely, unequivocally not be that. And what is that? That is science. He's just hijacking the words because every time he uses them, people nod and think he's proving things.
That in advanced modern science, as we know it, trying to follow the scientific method in good faith can be led into a kind of self-reinforcement of errors. And
Really? You're telling me an empirical outcome for A causing B will lead you into some sort of error? No, the actual scientific method, which he will not be applying, just the most outrageous theft of valor in this ridiculous nonsense that will not have any scientific methodology applied to it whatsoever. But he starts off by prefacing his bloody routine, which is all it is, by saying he's got stuff that's vaguely hinted at being an adherence to the scientific method by talking about it. This is an outrage, 10th. You've already got my blood boiling.
Listen. The key, the first key was earlier on, but the second key was trying to follow the scientific method. So
Right.
it means they didn't.
the general question that interests me, why I waded into this topic, is what happens at the very limit of knowledge, where physics and metaphysics intersect.
What? Physics would be the study of the physical and natural world. That's natural science. I've just detailed it as a cause and effect relationship elucidation by way of systematic experimentation based on valid hypothesis based on natural phenomena. That's physics. Where physics, the study of the physical and natural world, meets metaphysics? You mean where your stolen valor meets your bullshit? That's what that loosely translates to.
Cosmology is situated right here. It is right where science on the one hand and religion or myth, if you will, on the other, bleed into each other inevitably.
No. Empiricism and empirical outcomes based on scientific methodology do not bleed into religion.
And as I will try to show in the following, an excessive belief in the scientific method itself.
There's no belief in an empirical methodology. It's a method. You just have to adhere to it if you want the empiricism. There's no belief. It's in a category error.
What, you don't believe in the scientific method, Nathan?
It's a method. It's nothing to believe in. It's just a method.
What? But that doesn't mean you can't believe in it. I believe in the scientific method.
It's application, not belief. Whether or not you apply it, not believe in it. I can believe in it all day long. Will it validate anything? No. The application of the method.
No, I believe in the application of the scientific method, Nathan.
Piss off. Get lost, Darwin.
Can also lead to a kind of zealotry in its own right. Just a few words about how I came to this.
Zealotry, as opposed to advancing humanity. Every single bit of the technology he's using has been based on scientific validation. Yet he's decrying it as providing you with a zealot's outcome. No, empirical methodology does not induce zealotry.
Somewhat unusual perspective. So in my long academic journey,
this is projection. What they are is zealots. Why didn't I spot that immediately? Pure projection.
And most of it did in Canada. I was blessed and cursed, you could say, by doing all my doctoral research and postdoctoral research across disciplines, not inside of any particular one, not inside of philosophy or science studies as so. I was investigating the role of metaphysics in the formation of modern science.
you were doing an investigation into science, which is a very narrow method. Oh, I can't believe this. This guy's just a quack.
But I also followed what's known as science in action, inspired by the work of French anthropologist Bruno Latour and many others, trying to understand how science moves and works as well.
That'd be a short book if I wrote it. Title: Science in Action. First page. You got to wiggle it. Lots of blank pages following. That's it. That's the action. You wiggle it. You vary an independent variable. That's the action of science. If you want to follow the methodology, you've assumed that something you vary will cause an effect you've observed, and then you just vary it. That's it. That's the action. The action is the variation of an independent variable presumed cause of an effect you're studying. That's it. That's the action of science.
So the traditional perspective in philosophy of science is...
In the philosophy of science... No. While philosophers may have come up with the empirical methodology, that doesn't make philosophy science. Science itself, natural science, what we deal with here and what you'll bullshit about in terms of what the sky is the study of the physical and natural world and the methodology used to elucidate the cause of naturally occurring phenomena. That's not philosophy.
That science is about realism versus idealism.
No, it isn't. It's about elucidating the cause of a naturally occurring effect.
Different ways of approaching truth.
No, there's one way of approaching it. It's a set-in-stone method.
But really, science is about doing. It's about producing acceptable research.
No, it isn't. It's about varying and manipulating a presumed cause of an effect to see if it causes it or not.
It's about convincing other scientists.
No, it isn't. It's about showing them your empirical outcome if you have one.
It's about winning funding to do research and so on.
Yeah, that's what it is for you. Yeah? Bleeding the public dry so that you can bullshit them about what you say the night sky is. That's all this is. Because you're not following any methodology. If you were, you'd be laying out the methodology and showing us how it provided empirical outcome, like I can do with the scientific methodology that you're hijacking the valor of.
So on. So science, as I was trying to map out how cosmology and physics work, it's not simply about truth-seeking, it's a production of knowledge.
Oh, is it? So you're producing on a production line knowledge? No, scientific knowledge would be empirical in nature. You know, i.e., the outcome can only be one of two things. Either the thing I described earlier, the action of science, the wiggling your independent variable, either causes the effect that you wanted to induce because you were studying that effect and asking why it happened, or it doesn't. There's only two outcomes. That's it. It's really narrow. Roll on the bullshit from this man.
An industry. And I was trying to map this out across theoretical landscapes, not in any one individual.
Another science word. Theoretical. Almost sounds like it's based on scientific exploration that's got cause and effect reasoning validated through experimentation. That kind of theoretical. It isn't.
Silo. But as you may know, in academia, everything is governed by specialization. And the greater the specialization, the greater the potential blind spot. I had a PhD supervisor who used to argue that every discipline inevitably loses sight of its foundational problem over time.
Really? You see, if you've got a problem, which is I want to know why that happened, all you do is vary things until it happens. There's no losing sight of it. There's just no causing it if you don't know what caused it. In other words, you constantly and consistently validate your null hypothesis. Validate the zero difference prediction result. That is to say, you vary something and it doesn't induce the outcome you were trying to induce. Now, bearing in mind that that's the purpose of the experiment, to induce the effect you're studying, losing sight... Oh, I kind of forgot what phenomena I was even trying to induce for a second there. Why does anybody give these people money?
Time. So he used to say, if you want to understand politics, do not...
Politics? That sounds like the physical and natural world dealt with by physics and science. That would be politics.
Study political science.
Oh, I see. Another hijacking of the word science. Political science, what an oxymoron.
If you want to understand the economy, do not...
That would be the economy. What we got now, we're going to have economic science.
Study economics and so on.
So just economics. So you didn't even hijack it in the way that I was attempting to, because why bother, right? Why bother hijacking it when you can just say science about 50 times and then talk about economics?
So I used to wonder, if you want to understand the cosmos, should you study cosmology?
No, because it's a pseudoscience.
Obviously, there's no particular career path for this kind of perspective.
And why didn't you just answer the question? I would say no. Because looking and declaring and then seeking funding and trying to convince other quote-unquote scientists is what you'll actually do in that field. Now, if you just apply the scientific method, which requires almost no funding, then that's what you do. If you want to be a scientist and you want to study the quote-unquote cosmos, then you observe natural phenomena and presume a cause of the effect you observed and see if you can induce it or not. That's it. If you don't, the thing that you varied and didn't induce the effect with is a proven null hypothesis, zero difference result. Now, you can do that indefinitely. Alternatively, you can join what you call cosmology science and bullshit about what you say the sky is, based on consensus, peer review, the action of science, all sorts of other buzzwords like hypothesis, which you've used, theory, which you've used, science, which you've used repeatedly. But there isn't any. There's no science in anything this man will present on stage whatsoever. There will be no independent and dependent variable hypothesis construction with zero difference result. Null. There won't be that. There won't be any experimentation with a variation of a presumed cause to try and induce the effect. There won't be any validation of the effect being induced by a variation of a presumed cause that's then been validated to go on to form theories. But he will bullshit you, the audience, about every single one of those things and imply that he's got them, because they're all very clever science words that make you think he's proven all this crap that he's talking about. He hasn't. He hasn't proven a damn thing. But he'll be asking for funding. On that note, smash the super chat if you want to support this channel. 85 people, no, 90 people watching. Please share the show.
Like across the human and natural sciences, but this is how I came at this.
Right, 10th. Got to take it back. We're 3 minutes into this video, and so far all he's done is get my blood boiling because he keeps stealing valor. He's done nothing to undermine the Big Bang cosmology. 3 minutes in. Is it literally just the first 3, maybe even 4 minutes is just going to be building up the audience by stealing as much possible valor as that can be stolen from science and the scientific method to then launch into his bullshit? Is that what's happening?
Actually, you're going to be surprised by the end.
Not really. I mean, I've got to be honest. That's so far not so
we'll
good.
See. We'll
This
see.
question
You owe me
of
one
cosmology.
when you get surprised.
Okay.
And so, just from the outset, as I'm sure many of you know, cosmology is very different from other sciences in
It isn't science, it's pseudoscience.
a very fundamental way. The scope of the subject matter covers the largest extent imaginable, literally, and it does so based only on our own local place within it. So, unlike physics in the microscale,
Physics. Yeah, dealing with the physical.
we cannot do repeated experiments under controlled conditions.
So, because it's not physics, it's not science. Physics is science, right? Other quote-unquote sciences, like biology, do come under physics. They're just dealing with the physical. Now, the physical of men and what happens when what we call medicine is applied is still physics, if you're following the scientific method. Now, you can talk about group studies, Adam's here if he wants to go into that, but that is not science, right?
What did he just admit to?
Not having science.
Thank you.
We're looking for patterns in the sky and single observations.
Correlative studies, then. Definitely not cause and effect relationships. Definitely not controlled experiments, as he just detailed, that they definitely don't have. He's correct. Or turn around in 20 seconds.
Just the scope of the macrophysical universe as we know it is at
You don't know it. You've assumed it with scaling values from Kepler.
least 20 to 30 orders of magnitude higher.
Based on Kepler, you have no idea what order of magnitude anything is based on how much volume you've got of the sky. So you're telling us how colossal the amount of stuff you're dealing with is. You don't know how big you're dealing with. You're only basing it on Kepler's scaling value assumptions for these sizes to give us these orders of magnitude.
Higher than the lowest scale of theoretical physics at the micro level. So this means there's practically no accessible part of the universe where we can...
Where's that juxtaposition? Theoretical physics at the macro level, did he say, or micro level? Well, that's not physics, is it? You're talking about bullshitters in mathematics. Well, how does that directly relate to the physical reality with that one ham-handed segue? It doesn't, for anybody who's paying attention. Now, for the rest of the audience who've just listened to him bark out a few science words for 3 straight minutes, they're going to be utterly convinced that whatever he says from this point forward is valid and true.
Can do manipulations, and the timescales involved are also millions of times longer than any human life. So all
says you, based on Kepler scaling. Again, the audience is just going to nod because he's talked about science and used a few science words. So nod, nod, nod. Oh yeah, longer than our life. How do you know? You don't.
all of this obvious limitations, and it's possible to question already here, based on this, how cosmology could be a science at all. I mean, you could turn this around and say it's quite impressive that we can do anything at all and make any kinds of predictions from the extremely limited region of space that we're in.
So prediction in scientific terminology is called a hypothesis. It predicts the cause of an effect. So it's a suppositional statement that is yet to be validated that contains the antithesis of the prediction. That's a lot of words. What does that mean? It means that you see something happening and you go, I think this causes it. That's called an alternative hypothesis. I think this causes that. That, as a statement, is an alternative hypothesis. A scientific prediction, as he's just used that word. It contains the antithesis of that prediction. That's called a zero difference result prediction, also known as a null or null outcome. No outcome, zero difference. The null outcome is the opposite of what you state. If you think A causes B in your alternative, or this causes that, as I phrased it earlier, then your null prediction is this doesn't cause that. So that when you go forth and experiment, that's the actualization of your scientific prediction, you vary this and see if that happens. And if that doesn't happen, you validate, that's prove, your zero difference result. Your prediction that A, or this, wouldn't cause that. Well, that's proven true when it doesn't cause it. That's a scientific prediction. Again, a little bit more stolen valor when he talks about predictions, because he's going to base it on correlative studies, as he's just disclaimed, but then tell you that it's prediction-based. No, it isn't. Total lie.
That's visible. And how we can even measure it with some kind of confidence.
Measure what? This massive scale that you got from Kepler?
So just to consider the scale for a second. To measure distance in space...
You don't. You get Kepler to give you scaling values.
We use certain light phenomena in the sky that...
No, you don't, because the light phenomena is going to have a speed of light attached based on Einsteinian conceptual mathematics.
We figure are quite precise.
No, they're not. I've just debunked them in 2 breaths.
And we use them to guide us.
Guide you? I thought they were measuring. Notice how the words subtly change halfway through his description. Seconds earlier it was a measurement. Now it's a guide. I see. So 1 minute I've got a tape measure with nice little notches on it, measuring things. The next minute I've just got a stick that's roughly a yard long for my meter measurement that I need to make. Oh, it's just a guide now, is it? I see.
And so in order to measure space, we need...
Why did he stutter? You know, when we highlight the stutters of our opponents, that's why. I already highlighted why he stuttered. It's for the reasons I gave before he stuttered.
Need a theory and confidence that this
Not a measurement if it's a guide, is it?
Theory is universally applicable. So what it means is that cosmologists don't simply observe and measure distances.
They don't measure anything.
They interpret them in dependence on the model they use to calculate this distance.
Boom! So you're not measuring jack.
So there is, this is something I've written about elsewhere, but there's a self-reinforcing...
Why not say it like it is? So we're not measuring anything, we just bullshit about it, based on stuff that we've already assumed.
Dynamic at work here, where actually the further out in the universe you go, the more model-dependent you become.
No, again, you've got this juxtaposition between fantasizing about what your conceptual model will do and traveling physically out into what you describe as the universe. No, what you're doing conceptually and mathematically is traveling out into your model and describing mathematically what will happen in your model, and then calling that the universe, calling that cosmology, calling that the world, calling it physics. It isn't.
So try to run these calculations with a Canadian physics professor.
Calculations. There you go. He's disclaimed it himself. Still has to be honest.
that I collaborate with, and we found that, you know, when you get very, very far into the observable universe,
you're not moving into the observable universe when you do your calculations and your model. Again, just misleading the audience. It's a bait and switch. It's a little switcheroo before your very eyes in the same breath.
the difference between models can mean 25 to 50% difference in what the scale and the size is.
With reality? So what if the model's off? It could mean up to 50% off in reality. Bollocks.
How far apart galaxies really are depends on the model you use.
No, it does not. The model and its depiction of how far the galaxies are apart will be solely dependent on the model and what you're showing, and what happens in that model and what you're showing only exists in that model and what that model shows. It is absolutely devoid of any connection whatsoever to reality, because it's not reality. This has got a very specific definition. It's a fallacy. It's called the fallacy of misplaced concretedness, otherwise known as a reification fallacy. To take that which is not concrete and infer that it is the physical reality you live in. The example given under the definition of a reification fallacy, or the fallacy of misplaced concretedness, is the map is not the terrain. Well, this model is not the world. It does not have any bearing on my physical reality. If it did, I'd be dealing with physics, not conceptual models.
Now, this is rarely discussed because scientists have more or less agreed to just use only one model. So we are left with, you know, remarkably precise numbers for distances.
Really? So that's based on science agreeing? Because it's no longer a methodology that they don't adhere to. Science is now, by his language, become whether or not men agree. And in this instance, they agree on certain maths that is the world based on the model that they've all agreed on. So they've all agreed on the reification fallacy that they'll employ. No, this is definitely not science, but now it is linguistically. Shout out to Jardo, who says, I vote that 10th man gets the sack from presenting videos. We're all dying of boredom. All those who agree, type number. Then he doesn't give a number in the super chat. So we've got people going A, 0, pi, 4, 66.7. Nobody knows what number to type. And nobody knows what the number they do type means, Jardo. So that fell on its arse, really. But there's 95 people watching, so I'm very grateful regardless. And smash the super chat. Oh, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. I'm even going to give it a love heart. So thank you for the support. I don't find this boring. The fact that it's got my blood boiling, I would hope actually has enthused the audience into listening to 10th Man's very valid point for playing this. The point is he's decrying aspects. Now, he's not decrying it so we can take it and go, look, here they are admitting it. He's decrying it in the same way, as I said, with Wakey Wakey's astrophysicist. It's apologetics. Oh, yeah, well, we were well aware of those failings with the model. Doesn't mean the world's not a sphere flying through a vacuum. Us scientists already knew that. It's not like you're telling us that we don't know about our failed model. That's the attitude. Hello, Quantum Eraser. I've just woken up. Leave me alone.
What? I had to come off mute. Just wait a second. You got me now?
Yes.
You misread his super chat. He said type a number.
A number? Like a contradiction in terms with English and mathematics?
Just type a number. Any number.
Oh, as in just type any number. And
yes.
That means you're bored of watching this. Have you been watching?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Are you bored?
No.
And this model is called the standard model of cosmology, sometimes known as the concordance model or the lambda CDM model.
Concordance model? I've never heard it called that before. Anybody else ever heard of that? Type 1 in the chat if you've ever heard of the concordance label for the heliocentric exploded view that he just gives you on screen a second ago. Or it's on screen now, but smaller. Anybody heard of concordance? I know QE's going to go, yeah, obviously.
No, I haven't. But tell them what land of CDM means.
I've heard of it. I don't know what it means, but I have heard of that. Unlike concordance.
Yeah, it's the cold, dark matter.
Right. Yeah, that one's familiar. Enough for me to go, no, I recognise that. But when I hear something that I've never heard before in terms of a label for heliocentrism, Concordance. Okay. That's something I'll have to
Same
look-
thing.
Oh, okay.
Currently, the concordance model is the Lambda CDM.
Oh, okay. That's the shortened, nicer name for it. Okay, I didn't know that. Learn something new every day. Thank you, Adam, by the way.
I'll just put a question in my phone.
Mumble, mumble. One more time.
Can't unmumble. I got monster munch in my mouth.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
The idea of the Big Bang, and that's easy enough to understand.
Idea? Well, there was me thinking it was science. The idea of it is easy to understand. Sure, just like the idea of unicorns is easy to understand.
And this might be a reason why this idea has been able to capture the imagination of 3 generations already.
Sorry, is that what we're doing? Capturing imagination? My God, this guy. I see why you wanted this now, 10th. Now that we're 6 minutes in and my blood's starting to calm down and cool down.
But the standard model is like actually quite a complicated structure. So been working to map this out. This is one way to represent it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the childhood game Jenga.
Did he really just label this bullshit stacked on top of each other like a kid's game of Jenga? What, like you push one block out and the whole thing comes collapsing down? Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's a fair analogy. I mean, Wakey, the second mention on one show, he once used the analogy for the heliocentric model, right? Which I love. I like this analogy. As being a globe that as you approach it, it looks really solid. It looks like it's got a lot of heft and weight to it. But as you get even closer, you realise that it's actually like newspaper. You can see like little print bits sticking out of it and stuff. And you're like, hang on, is this papier-mâché? So you touch it to see if it's papier-mâché. And without even trying, your finger goes straight through the paper. And you go, oh my God, I've damaged it. What's going on? And you go, it's not solid at all. So you peer through, and when you look through the papier-mâché ball, not only is it completely hollow, there's a couple of people on the other side looking through at you. And they've also done it. They've poked their finger through. And you're like, hello. Check it out. It's completely hollow in there. Jenga, I like it, mate. I might take that on.
In
Look,
which you
look where
build.
evolution is. Remember I told you it was connected by the lips? It's a center block.
Can't see it. Oh, I've tried to make it bigger so I could see, and I still can't.
The tower of different blocks on
Hopefully make it a bit bigger.
top of each other, and if any of the blocks, you can pull out one of the blocks, and then the other ones would fall apart.
You said,
You gotcha. You bet. That's right.
In my mind, the standard model of cosmology is a little bit like this. We have built building blocks on top of each other. So on top of the Newtonian basics.
Out of date. 108 years. Is it 108 or is it 107? Don't want to do the quick maths. Anyway, yeah, more than 100 years out of date, that block. Should we not pull it out? Oh, that's why they still teach it in schools. Because the whole kit and caboodle collapses. I see. That's why kids still get taught the incorrect nonsense of mass attracting mass. It's a very important little Jenga block for the standard model. Hello, Anthony.
And I only joined to point out that if you remove one of those Jenga blocks and the rest of it collapses, look at what he's got as one of the foundational blocks. Newtonian gravitation.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like I was saying. That's why you've still got to teach it. I said that coincidentally in the pre-show. It's like, why do we still have it still taught to school kids? Well, because it's fundamental foundation to stop you flying off a spinning water ball flying through a vacuum. So regardless of it now being a non-force force that you can think of as a force that's the uneven distribution of mass causing the uneven distribution of space-time, and that's what you typically think of as you being held to a ball because all things go to the ground, but it doesn't. It's not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Very convoluted nonsense to keep you onto a ball and apologise for you not flying off it. But it's an important Jenga block. So you can't just stop teaching kids that mass attracts mass, because if they're not taught that, the whole Jenga block collapses.
It's such a powerful admission that it's like an embedded confession. It's almost overtly admitting that this is all bullshit, but without saying it. So, like, how would you make an admission that it's all bullshit without admitting that it's all bullshit? And this is how you do it.
Yeah, to a friendly audience, though. Does this not remind you of Wakey Wakey with that astrophysicist, Anthony?
No, it reminds me of Fight the Flat Earth getting debunked by George Musa and not accepting it and then doubling down and then getting corrected again by George Musa. That's what it reminds me of.
Fair enough.
That we have confidence for within our own solar system up to a certain degree. We have, with the standard model, the key is a general relativity model, a specific version of it that assumes evolution over time.
He's got a confidence to a certain degree, yet he's alluded continually to it being science. And it's like, you don't have confidence degrees in empirical outcomes. That's experimental data. That's empirical. But he's got to weasel away from what science actually offers if you follow the method in favor of these correlative studies and models and Jenga blocks. It's like, no. Typically speaking, you know, the absolute truth of what causes what is really easily demonstrated through multiple systematic experimentation based proof. And once you've got that proof, you can benefit humanity. You can advance society. None of this does that. You pop yourself on mute, Anthony, unless you've got something to add.
It's not Anthony.
And
That's Jenga debunks globe.
Is it?
Jenga debunks globe. He changed his name.
That's the,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, right. Yeah. So today I am not Sleeping Warrior. Today I identify as Jenga debunks globe, and you must say that every time.
Okay. And your pronouns are she and Zar, right?
Yeah.
We've coupled that with this idea of the cosmic origin, the finite origin in time, which is this hypothesis that, you know, the universe started with a big bang.
A what now? A hypothesis? Yeah, see, back to stealing valor, using these science words. So people hear hypothesis and go, ooh, science word. Oh, it's definitely proven then. No. If he had a hypothesis, he'd have a natural phenomena to observe. What's he got? It's you guys' Jenga tower. There's no natural phenomena. This is so far removed from anything that could be described as a valid hypothesis. It's untrue.
That is the
I'd
main
like to
frame.
hear the hypothesis.
He won't have one. It's just literally thrown in to convince the audience that he's proving something with this. That's all it's there for.
Framework. And then two key interpretations in the 20th century were hailed as evidence of this framework. First,
Framework. There's that word again. Sound familiar? Yeah, when we accuse Whitsitt of doing the exact same thing that was done to con you onto a ball, there you go. Here's a few buzzwords that he uses. He's got a logical framework. What's this guy got? Well, he's got a logical framework based on bullshit and non-science.
At least this guy's got blocks.
the redshift of galaxies was taken to mean that space is expanding. Usually we hear about space is expanding. What is noteworthy is that this is an interpretation. It's a consensus interpretation of a...
We know. Yeah, that's something we highlight daily. Go on, whoever that was.
Nah, I was just laughing. He's talking about consensus interpretations. Consensus has nothing to do with science. If it's consensus, it's not science.
Precisely.
Period.
Yep.
a light phenomenon. This expansion of space would work really well with this general relativity model.
Again, anybody out there listening that's an ether believer? Does any of this sound familiar to you? There's a reason it sounds familiar. It's because it's the same piss in a different bottle.
That assumes evolution in time. So this was the so-called discovery of the redshift of galaxies and the expansion of the universe was key to making scientists move to an evolutionary model of the universe. Then the second thing that happened was very important in the 1960s was the discovery of the so-called cosmic microwave background radiation. This
Now we're getting really into what this model's based on, right? The CMB.
was discovered, it was interpreted as a residue of the Big Bang. I'm not going to go into more detail about those things here, but just want to point out that...
Yeah, you better not. You better not speak of any detail, not even any detail, just generalization. I debunked both of these 14 years ago. Wow,
These
they're on my
observations...
channel.
Then give them a proper plug. What's the title?
It has redshift in the title. It has something like clobbering redshift and the CMB, something to that effect. I can't even remember.
Such enthusiasm on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel. Be here or be sphere for something bashing.
Just go to the channel and type in CMB or redshift and
Fine.
Got it.
The Quantum Eraser YouTube channel.
Or interpretations, and really only those two shifted the
100 people watching, 101 people watching. Woohoo! Very warm welcome to all of you who've just joined us. If you've joined us because you've smashed a link that one of the regulars has sent out there because we don't get any YouTube love whatsoever, then thank you for clicking on it. Also, please smash it yourself. Great to get over 100 people watching. In the meantime, for anybody who's been here a little while, we are covering Beyond the Big Bang by Bjorn Ekberg. Hopefully I've said that correctly. And as is normally the routine, for those of you who've just joined us and haven't done this already, please go to the channel, which is the Institute of Art and Ideas, and just let them know, by way of the link that is going by in the live stream chat now, that at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. The purpose of this is to let him know we responded to your video. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and hopefully, were this YouTuber, who's got 170-odd thousand subscribers, to respond, they would return the algorithmic love that we so sorely desire from YouTube but do not get, by putting a link to our video in his response. Unlikely? Hasn't happened to date? I think the only person who's actually done it, that's Straight Eyes, Matthew Learns, or Weathers, as he goes by, who put it on his tiny little channel that no one subscribed to. Thanks for that, Matthew. Really, really helped.
entire theoretical framework for the universe in the middle of the 20th century. So it's with these building blocks and these two key interpretations, it became a professional discipline with big research budgets and so on. That's the foundation. That's the only professional cosmology that we've had.
It's the only thing that matters. The group with the big budget. The ones getting the money. This is the most important thing.
Prior to this, it used to be, astronomers and philosophers wondering about how space was outside of our own solar system.
Then we got funding, big offices, lots of money. Great.
It's the only model that we really have worked with in the last 50 years.
All we know. So it's got to be right. Yes.
So standard cosmology assumes the universe has a finite origin in time.
Why would it assume anything?
And this is
in science, you assume the cause of an effect, but that's a suppositional statement known as a hypothesis or scientific prediction that is yet to be validated. In other words, it's clear that that statement doesn't prove anything. When you say, well, A might cause B, I haven't varied it yet to find out, then the next question anybody's going to ask you is, well, when are you going to vary it to see if it does cause it or not? Whereas in this version of your science, stolen valor of the methodology that's empirical, it's all about whether or not you agree, whether or not consensus has got a good idea of which model you're only ever going to use. That's pathetic, really, isn't it? The cockery of man.
This is what's described by the general relativity model. A more fundamental tenet of this is that the claim that mathematical laws that we deduce from our own galaxy, our own neighborhood of the universe, apply universally.
Yeah, they don't. Because mathematical laws are laws in language to describe things. But they don't apply to the physical and natural world. You might be able to describe or quantify things in the physical natural world with the language of maths. But again, another reification fallacy. No, physics deals with the real world. Maths is a language. It's abstract.
And this means that because we assume that they have this infinite or until the end of the universe kind of reach.
Again, why would you be assuming anything?
That we can know the entire temporal...
sorry, so you assumed it, but therefore you can infer that you know things. Again, with the empirical method of science, the thing you're stealing the valor of, you'd actually vary and manipulate that thing that you assumed because it's in a suppositional statement that has yet to be validated. But what you do is take what you call a hypothesis, as you've specifically used that word, and then claim that that is the explanation. You don't detail the fact that it's yet to be validated. You just call a hypothesis an explanation. That's the trick. Use these science words that you know are attached to proof, and then say that your hypothesis is, and then give your mystic make prediction of something.
Temporal extent of the universe from its creation until today, that we can calculate the time.
This is good. As much as I was critical at the beginning that 10th gave us this video, This is what we do here, right? As much as people might enjoy watching me nag on Jaren to understand this stuff, this is what it's really all about. Yeah, it's all well and good us pointing out that Dave Weiss is using these tricks to con people in the exact same way with the exact same shell game, just for flat Earth rather than globe Earth. The fact that we agree with the overall premise doesn't mean we agree with the methodology to convince people. Well, in this instance, here we are seeing the real root problem. Everybody thinks they're on a globe because they've been told that science proves it. And here's a man explaining, with his weasel words, why science doesn't prove his claim of a heliocentric world. It's still stealing the valor in the process. He's still offering himself his own credibility through a method that he hasn't applied. He's even detailed how they don't apply it. But this is the real root problem. This is what we really want to deal with on Flat Earth Debate. We want to see Witsit seeing people like this and taking apart their claim of science and its base, pointing out that they're stealing the valor of science. And the only reason they'd want to do it is to convince you, the audience, that he's proving what he said. Because that's what science does. So you've got to understand that that's what science does to understand how this magic trick works. And there's a good chunk of flat earthers who don't understand this magic trick. It's not that complicated. You've got a word that means proof. So you steal the word and attach it to things that don't have proof. Then people think you've got proof. It's a really easy magic trick to understand. So what do we get when we try and disseminate that to our friends on the flat earth side? You're a scammer. That's what we get. Saying science proves things, scammer. No, it does. Otherwise there'd be no point in using the bloody words to convince people that you've proved this bullshit like this man does.
And then we have the framework, so now we just have to...
Framework, there it is again. How appropriate. Right? Logical frameworks for counter space. Well, he's got his CMB for his ever-expanding universe, hasn't he? Sound familiar?
Fill in the stars and the galaxies. It's just puzzle work from here, is the proposition. It's a very bold project, and it's painting a grand picture, and we found lots of data to match this picture.
Wow. He's going to launch into his correlative studies. Here we go.
We also made a lot of observations that contradict this picture.
Oh, well, how useful. Oh, my God.
So one of them, as you know, we just debated this morning dark matter in another panel. That's one of the blocks. That's
another apologetic like gravity. Go on, with someone from Discord wanting to get a word in.
Did they measure anything, or did you just calculate it again?
Just calculated, already disclosed.
Oh.
It's been added on top to account for discrepancies between theories and observation. So
yep, there's another science word. Theories and observations. You see, observation is step one. Observation of a natural phenomena, mind you. But that's step one. Theory comes right at the very end. So you observe natural phenomena, suppose a cause, vary it, prove it causes the phenomena you were studying at step one, then you form your theory. But for this guy, he negates every single step beyond the observation and jumps straight to the science hijacking word of theory. That's what's happening.
Right. So you just make an equation, then you balance the equation. If the equation works out, you're correct. This is science, according to them.
It's disclosed how the process of hijacking it works. It's really simple. In the process of science, step one, observe natural phenomena. Step two, suppose a cause of the effect you are studying. Step three, vary the cause you assume to see if it causes the effect. Then you can form your theory. His version of that same method. Step one, make an observation. Step two, formulate a theory. That's it. That's his method. So where did you get any empirical information out of that? I didn't. We had consensus and models that we all agreed on. And now we've got maths. And now we've got Jenga blocks. And we slot it all together in a precarious little tower. And that's what we base it on. There's no empiricism here.
Dark matter was essentially invented in the middle of the 20th century, in the latter half of it, as an explanation for why our observations of galaxies didn't fit this mathematical model.
Pretty much like I said before he said it, which is to say it's an apologetic that you invented to comport with the model that didn't work.
Right. Why didn't the assumption of what it was that we were seeing fit their model?
Instead of saying there's might be something wrong with their framework.
There's that word again. Might be something wrong with the framework. Right. I mean, if there's something wrong with the framework, like there's an experiment that doesn't really prove what you were hoping it would prove because it's not actually an experiment, you know what you can do in frameworks like that? Just don't call it an experiment. Just leave off the word. Then the framework works. Wonderful, wonderful phrase. So flexible.
No, Nathan. Once something is marked with science, it's science forever, even though it doesn't prove anything.
Or if it isn't science. But like I say, you can just not call it an experiment and jobs are good 'un. If anybody objects to your science hijacking, you can say, oh, I don't call it experiment no more. That's a win.
Move of cosmologists was to say there must be something else because otherwise our theory would not be correct. So there must be this thing.
Yeah. In science, you'd be presuming a different cause because you failed to vary it and prove that it caused it.
Inflation is something that was invented. You see it at the back there.
You see how all these words that mean fundamental aspects of your world in a heliocentric model was just invented. This idea, the inflation idea, or it just came out, just pulled it out of our ass. Yeah, just invented it. Yeah. You need something else? You need unicorns in space? Yeah, we can pluck that out of our ass too, if we need to. Anything you like, really.
Invented
For
too?
inflation, the gentleman that discovered it or invented it retracted everything he said about it.
It's still there though. It's already a Jenga block. Ha ha ha! Too late now. It's like Newton. If anybody ascribes this nonsense to me, I'll be furious. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna call it Newtonian gravity.
It's part of the paper mache.
Yeah, we've already slapped that layer on. Well, can't you angle it? No, it's already a Jenga block.
It was invented as an explanation for how the universe could possibly come into the shape that we can observe today from
Shape? How you're observing a shape? You say? No.
this Big Bang. That's a mathematical theory for how.
Oh, so it's a mathematical theory. I see. So just an abstract description in language then.
That's
a
Very convoluted.
Contradiction in terms.
Mathematical theory is a contradiction in terms.
Yes,
This
sir.
vernacular is going all over the place by now. It's getting very messy.
He's almost at the end, to be honest.
Dark energy was then invented to account for this found ostensible acceleration of space.
A lot of stuff invented in your heliocentric world that you think is real. So some guy just talks about it, invents it, conjures it into reality, and now you believe it. That's how it works.
Did he just say acceleration of space? As in available volume?
Yep.
How does available volume accelerate?
This is just conceptual language, Arwin. If I need a dimension that doesn't exist to bend, I can invent one and bend it.
And so on. So all of it is building blocks on top of each other to sort of create patches on what the original framework could not do, step by step. So today there are some crises in cosmology and challenges to some of these upper blocks, such as dark matter that's been.
So let me get it straight. These are fundamental building blocks for the world you think you live in, and you're going to now detail the problems with the foundational blocks of the reality you say we live in. I see. Does nobody else have massive alarm bells going off? Is it just us? Yeah, it's just us.
Debated here, but very few scientists want to question the blocks below, the ones that hold up these dark matter and dark energy blocks.
Do we give a crap, right? While he's saying about what scientists are concerned about questioning, like meanwhile, there's plenty of phenomena that they could be studying if they were actually scientists, but they don't want to question one of the fundamental premises of their worldview because it's precarious. It's just so pathetic.
And
Right, isn't the whole cornerstone principle of the supposed science, not the method, but the idea of it is like, oh, you work through data, you figure things out, and then, oh, something turned out to be a misconception. Well, then you correct said misconception and you move on. Why is that the only thing that isn't happening with the heliocentric model? Like, no, they will take dark matter, dark energy, because otherwise it wouldn't work, making everything even more convoluted instead of just recognizing maybe it was just wrong.
Yeah, do you know what else follows this pattern, Arwin? He's got his building block framework on screen. Another thing that follows the exact same pattern and has the same issues with people not wanting to pull at certain strings is a web of lies. Same principle. Oh, well, we don't want to address that particular aspect of this web of lies because the entire charade will come falling down. It's the same principle. That what you're looking at has been described as a logical framework. It's actually a web of lies.
Would argue
It's
from
like a
my
presuppositional framework. It's like this is everything you have to presuppose in order for all of this to seem to work.
Well, take a
AKA
look at his foundation. No, no,
AKA
listen to
web
what
of
he said.
lies.
Listen to what he said. Pull up his blocks. He said all these blocks down beneath the CMB or the CDM are pretty much, they're solid. So look at his blocks down there. You got Newtonian mechanics, gravity. That's been debunked 108 years ago. Redshift, that's debunked. Nucleosynthesis is just a conjuring of nonsense. Look it up. It's pretty funny. General relativity, that's gone. Universal expansion. What's the difference between that and inflation? CMB's gone. Evolution. What the hell is that? Dark matter. All these blocks, all these Jenga blocks are gone. Too funny.
Well, if there's
He'd rather
the
just not address
particle wave
them.
duality with light, well, maybe then there's also a force non-force duality with gravity.
No, he's just saying that the scientists, in quote, just don't want to address them. So where QE has just quickly said no, they all have been debunked or superseded. Well, then, if they're fundamental building blocks, then no one's ever going to want to look at them because the entire structure, again, web of lies. Shout out to Unitox Femu. I never thought that geometry would be macronuclear. And I never thought we'd be studying unicorn digestion, Unitox Femu, but there we go. We've all got strange things occurring as flat earthers. Thank you for the super chat.
research that this reluctance to question the blocks underneath is not because they are themselves so solid and proven beyond doubt, but rather because if any of them are in doubt or even slightly wrong, then this entire Jenga tower would fall apart.
Yes, emphasize that some more.
Because
It'll
they
be
are themselves
more
so solid and
impressive.
proven beyond doubt, but rather because if any of them are in doubt or even slightly wrong, then this entire Jenga tower would fall apart. So it's just too difficult to start waiting.
We are in agreement with somebody on the opposite side. He's fundamentally ingrained into heliocentric belief, right? It's part of it. But in every aspect, we would agree with him as we're nodding along, and we're preemptively saying what we would object to heliocentrism with and why we would object to him. And then he pretty much verbatim repeats our objections. What's going on? Again, 10th, kudos.
Wading into what this stuff is built on.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the...
Alternatively, let the Institute of Art and Ideas, please let the YouTube videographer know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. As I said before, in the vein, hope that they would algorithmically hook us up by putting a link to at Nathan Oakley 1980 in their video as we have done for them. So kindly help them in the algorithmic love that they will receive from Nathan Oakley 1980 channel watchers by putting a comment that says that Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, helping him in the algorithm, and hopefully he'll return the favour. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that. I enjoyed hearing him pretty much parrot what we were objecting to as a nonchalant, wakey-esque astrophysicist. Oh yeah, well, that's wrong in the model, but we wouldn't want to be looking at that because it would all collapse. So we'll just leave that well alone while we endeavour to move forward based on that nonsense that would all collapse if we looked at it. Excellent stuff. Thanks, Tenth.
Maybe we can just play some Ball Earth Jenga. Sounds like fun.
That's what we do daily, Arwen. That is what we do here. we play
exactly.
Ball Earth Jenga with the ballers. But what we do, slightly different spin on it, we get them to push the blocks out, don't we, when they come here?
You know, when I first watched this, I had that, your summary at the end is what I felt when I first watched this. It's an admission from an insider, one of their own, pulling back the curtain behind the so-called framework that is the Jenga tower cosmology, as Paula says in chat.
Well, I hope the attitude of the chat has actually changed slightly, and they're like, "Yeah, that was good. I enjoyed listening to that." It makes everything we've done in respect to people who have had criticisms of us in recent videos. Were like, "Why are you infighting? Why are you nipping at the heels of Jaren or Dearth or whoever it is that we're critiquing in terms of science in this specific context?" Well, this is why. So this was an excellent video because you can see how astrophysicists hijack the terminology of science to convince an audience that they're proving things. And he's disclaiming where we would point out the model's wrong. Very nonchalant in his way of doing it, but nevertheless, he's doing the same thing we do. He's then pointing out where they haven't got science. That doesn't alter his fully ingrained into every cell of his being that is to hijack the valor of science and use the words like theory, like hypothesis, like science itself. He used all of them. So it lends credence to our justification for saying, no, we need to know this stuff as flat earthers if we're going to win. If we're going to achieve victory in debate, you need to know what you're up against. And this is what we're up against. We're up against the hijacking of science to prove things where they haven't really been proven. Just using the words that suggest proof when they haven't actually got any. And this is important. If you want to be a good flat earther, know how you are duped onto being on a ball. That'll be the thing that progresses you. That's well, go on, whoever it is wants to.
No, that was me. He said earlier the reason why it keeps going and going the way it is, and he's an insider seeing the problem. He said, today's science is about winning funding.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit the super chat and all that good stuff. I think there was actually a super chat that came in right at the very end. Another super chat from Uditox Femu. So let's just bring that up on screen and read it out before we round out fully. And invite them all to share their pain, or share the pain. Indeed, we do invite them to share their pain. It's a very distressing situation if you're on the anti-flat earth side of this discussion, Unisox Femi. Thank you very much, Sasha, for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Once again, another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!